Hello and welcome back to the Villa Filler podcast. I'm here as always with my good friend Dan Wiseman. Dan, it's that time of year again. It's Premier League predictions time, and it kind of has to be said, mate. We've just watched the Manchester United game, so we're not going to take too much from that. We're not going to draw too many conclusions for neither Manchester United or Fulham, but we're here to give our totally unbiased, unfiltered Premier League predictions as we do every single season.
Mate, I'm very excited. I think this is where we have to appreciate that we have some truly great listeners because we probably don't hold ourselves too accountable with these predictions. There's no kind of end of season check-in or anything like that, which I'm sure if we actually went back through the last few years, maybe we'd be quite glad of. And this is where we have some fantastic listeners because you guys don't put us up on it either. And so maybe that's something that we have to start doing going forward, mate, is, maybe we would surprise ourselves, maybe the more accurate than we might think. But it's always good to do this, I've got the 1 to 20 or the 20 to 1, I suppose, written down right here. I did it before the Man United Fulham game and I haven't changed it since. So my predictions are as they were as I was sat at the tram stop waiting for my tram home from work earlier today. When I banged these out, they have remained untouched.
Mate, that's where you do your best thinking, isn't it? On the tram in Manchester. It's where all the good ideas come from. But as you said, mate, we'll start from the bottom. 20th. I don't know about you, mate. This just screams Leicester City for me.
See, yeah, I don't think there'll be too many surprises. I've actually got Southampton in 20th and then Leicester in 19th.
Do you know what? I don't hate that. I can get on board with that. Let's whack in Southampton and Leicester right away. I think Southampton, obviously, at the time of recording, mate, have just signed Cameron Archer today. So
yeah,
just an Ollie McBurney away from signing Sheffield United's forward line. I believe Ollie McBurney's actually scored today as well in his Las Palmas debut in La Liga, which is just remarkable. These stories write themselves. I mean, I like some of the business that Southampton have done. I just think that they have struggled in a similar way which we did when we first came up, where they sort of needed to rebuild the squad. They had a lot of loans last season. They've made the signing of Taylor Harwood-Bellis permanent. Something that they absolutely had to do. And I feel like in making some of these loan moves permanent, they may not have been able to focus in some of the areas where they could have strengthened a little bit better. If what's worth, I really like Ben Brereton Diaz. I watched a lot of him for Sheffield United last season. I think he's more than capable of leading the line for a team between 20th and 12th in the Premier League, potentially even higher. But yeah, I think Russell Martin's approach to football is very similar to that of Vincent Kompany's, and I think we all saw how that went last season, didn't we, mate? So I can't really argue with you putting them 20th there.
No, they kind of just feel a little bit lightweight in kind of some areas, and I'd say like Russell Martin. I think between the two managers, I've got a little bit more faith in Steve Cooper at this level. Obviously, did a very good job in keeping Forest up, and whilst I still think that Leicester squad is significantly some way off in putting together a side that I confidently like. But just the job of avoiding the drop is so huge. It's so huge, and it takes such a gargantuan effort these days for me to look at a newly promoted team and think, yeah, like they're going to do it. Even, for a club the size of Leicester, who won the damn thing not too long ago, like then coming back into Premier League life, they've obviously got injuries to, I know he's not the talisman that it once was, but Jeremy Vardy, I think Patson Daka is out as well. They've made some decent signings this summer. I like Collier at centre-back and stuff like that. But yeah, I look at Vestergaard, Belfast, and there's kind of still some fragilities there. And so... yeah, obviously, I think that's a decent chance to kick on to 18th. And the side that I got, it's the other newly promoted side. And whilst I love Ipswich's business, I love the business that they've done. I think they're putting together a really good side. I still think it will just be a classic case of they will push and push and push, and they will give it a right good go. But when I look at the sides above them, I just couldn't say wholeheartedly that over a 38-game season, they're going to rack up more points. I do have some concerns going forward. I like the signing of Sammy Smodics. I like the signing of Liam Delap. But are they going to stay up? And maybe they'll scrape it. I'm interested to see where you've got them.
Yeah, I think it's hard not to put them 18th, mate. It's difficult. I really like McKenna. Really like what Ipswich have done. Kind of similar to Southampton, where they've gone and spent the money big on Amari Hutchinson. Again, something that they absolutely needed to do. He was phenomenal for them last season in the Championship. If you don't know, get to know. Really talented kid there. And again, I really like the business. Jacob Greaves from Hull, really exciting prospect at centre back. Obviously, they've got Calvin Phillips done today, as you mentioned, Sammy Smodics. I'm maybe not as set on Delap as you are, mate. I think there's definitely a player there. I think anyone who sort of treads through the academy system at Manchester City is definitely going to have a decent career in football. But I feel like he struggled a little bit with that. I can't really hold a loan move to Stoke maybe 3 seasons ago against him, but struggled a bit there. I didn't keep that much of an eye on him at Hull last season, if I'm being completely honest. But yet to be sold on Delap myself personally, but I really like what McKenna stands for as a manager. Pretty sure he recently signed a long contract as well. And I look at a lot of the business that they've done and think, do you know what? You're going to give the Prem a bloody good go. You're going to get a bit of a bloody nose while you're doing it, but you're going to have, it is valuable experience at the end of the day. And, we've obviously both got them to go down here, mate. I think they'll give the Championship another really good go, and they'll come back and be better for it. But, with that being said, I think there are a few teams, mate, that could be flirting there. And if Ipswich are as ambitious as they appear to be, then maybe, just maybe, they could well stay up. There's been a lot of talk about Southampton doing like a Luton. If anyone's doing a Luton, I think it's Ipswich. Southampton are doing a Burnley, and Leicester are unfortunately doing a Sheffield United. I think Ipswich could stay up, and I think the teams that they will be competing against in this area, I can already see the fans of these teams are going to go absolutely berserk in the comment section right now. But I have got Nottingham Forest in 17th.
They're not too far away from me. I've got them 15th. I've actually got the old Dingles.
Oh, okay. Okay. I'm interested to hear that, because I've been listening to a lot of other people's Premier League predictions recently, and I can't remember who said it now, but they made a very interesting point, which hit me like a ton of bricks. Wolves have a lot of players that casuals may not know, or if you're not watching Wolves week in, week out and really paying attention, you wouldn't necessarily know. And I was like, do you know what? Yeah, you're right. I look at Gary O'Neill. I think he's a good manager for what it's worth. I feel like he's very Marmite, but I think we're both aligned on the fact that they haven't really spent and improved the squad. So for that reason and that reason alone, and the fact that other people are obviously going to be and have invested, somewhat in their team, that they're going to be in for a bit of a long season.
There is, there's some business to like. I like Jorgen Strand Larsen. I think he's a good player. Be interesting to see what likes of Rodrigo Gomez, who they signed for Benfica, Pedro Lima. There's some interesting players that they've kind of picked up. But Pedro Neto, Max Kilman, for me, the outgoings far outweigh the incomings. And I think it kind of felt that Wolves have been on a slippery slope for a couple of seasons now. And I think whilst my inner city rivalry might be slightly going to my head there, it'd be interesting to see. I know they're looking at Carlos Forbes from Ajax potentially replace Pedro Neto, and I think obviously, and there's a lot of the clubs that have been affected by this. I'm kind of ranking this as we stand right now. If we did this table come the end of the transfer window, it may look very different. I think for our club included. And so, but I have to kind of rank it as we sit right here, right now. And as I look at the kind of teams above them, but yeah, they're in a little cluster of teams, mate. And I say Nottingham Forest are in there for me. I've got them 50. Sandwiched between the two is Bournemouth for me.
Oh, that's an interesting one. I hadn't I haven't really given Bournemouth much thought. I'm inclined to agree with you though, even though the tier list does not let me put it in the right spot. Um, Losing Solanke's huge, and people are going, oh well, they'll replace someone, and the difficult thing is when you are sort of perennially destined to be at best a mid-table side, and it's no disrespect to Bournemouth whatsoever. It's purely down to the financials. It's nigh on impossible to replace somebody like Solanke, who broke 20 goal contributions last season, and I feel has very quietly sort of built up a confidence and developed his game and become a really, really good striker in the Premier League. I think you could argue about whether he was worth the 65 million or not. I don't think that's relevant, but Bournemouth are really going to struggle to directly replace somebody short term as important as Solanke was. And is it Evanilson from Porto, their leading number 9 that they've been chasing? There was obviously talk about Cam. Obviously that has happened with Cam going to Southampton, but I feel like it's a bit of a it's almost an impossible task, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Evan Nelson might surprise people. I think that's the problem is it's easy to say that it's a big risk for them to take. Obviously, Bournemouth are shopping in a certain kind of market. They probably can't go out and pull the profiles that they'd like to replace someone like Dominic Solanke, so they have to be a little bit experimental. And Evan Nelson, he's only 24, he's still a young striker. It'll be interesting to see what he can do coming in from Porto. But if you stack up my kind of bottom quarter of the league, so I had Southampton, Leicester, Ipswich in 18th, that was the relegation zone, Wolves in 17th, Bournemouth 16th, Forest in 15th. I think Bournemouth I'd put above that crop and above Wolves, and I'm kind of flexible here. I just have faith in Andoni Iraola. I think of those 6 teams up to Forest, I think they've got the best manager, and probably by some distance as well. And so on virtue of that alone, they played some very good football last season. And look, it's just the output that I think they're going to struggle with. They haven't done a huge amount of business. What they have done, I quite like. Dean Howson coming in from Juventus, Julian Araujo coming up from Barcelona, like good, fine signings. But yeah, I think the temperature check on Evan Nelson will be really, really key. If he can hit the ground running and he can kind of even go some way to replacing half, 3/4 of the goals that Solanke put up, that will go a long way. But kind of on the material that we have in front of me right now, I've got them in that kind of mire of teams. But yeah, I'm happy to kind of be a bit fluid with those.
I'm looking at my next 2 teams here, and I'm starting to think that we've got Everton quite high, and I don't know where specifically you've got them, but I'm going to have to put them in here at 14th because I think there's been some good business. Like I really like the signing of Illiman and Dye. I think that could work really well. We know Deitch likes to play a 4-4-2, and I think Dye is the perfect foil to a fit Dominic Calvert-Lewin. I think that could be a really interesting partnership. I just think, unless they spend a bit more money, obviously, we've signed Lewis Dobbin from them, who's since gone to the Baggies. We've signed Amadou Onana. They've taken Tim. Unless Everton can properly replace Onana, I think they may struggle. And I know if you sort of look at the numbers as well, I think Onana may have spent something like between 8 to 10 games on the bench last season. So it's not like he was, solely relied upon by Sean Dyche to really sort of earn his trust at times. I just think that with other teams spending big, you have to go and replace someone like Amadou. And as of right now, they haven't really done that. So I'm going to put them in 14th, and then 13th, which again, I actually think is quite high, and I'm sort of struggling with this bracket of teams, is Brentford. I think it's difficult because since Euros aside, Tony has had a pretty stinking return to football since his ban. Didn't have the contribution in the Premier League that I think a lot of people expected him to. Obviously, was a very crucial part of our Euro campaign, but he is somebody who quite clearly doesn't want to be there. I think there's talk of Saudi Pro League offers as well. But I look at them. I look at someone like Brian Mbeumo. I didn't realise he's only 24. That's got to be the oldest looking 24-year-old ever, for one. But for two, again, I would be very surprised if come the end of the window, Brian Mbeumo is still a Brentford player. The one thing I will say to Brentford is they are more than a sum of their parts. I think they had sort of planned for the signing, or the departure, of Ivan Toney. They signed a big striker called Igor, goes and does, a very serious injury in pre-season as well. So that isn't ideal for them either. And I believe I was reading the other day that their set-piece coach has swapped Brentford for Chelsea. So that is massive as well, really, when you're looking at how Brentford are as a team and where they get a lot of their goals and chances from. They are set plays. I think it could be a difficult season for them.
I completely agree. I actually had them. So I had Bournemouth 16th, Forest 15th. I had Brentford next in 14th. I completely agree with everything that you said. I'm slightly quite happy that Ivan Toney's window has been and gone. I think on the last podcast when we were talking about Carlos and Duran, I just have such little respect for players who go out and outwardly flirt with other clubs and disrespect the fans of the club that they're currently at. And Ivan Toney did a lot of that over a long, long time. I think Brentford were far too nice and just kind of putting up with it, to be honest with you. So it gave me great joy to see that, I think his window may well have already passed. I think those Dominic Solanke stocks were far better placed by a club like Spurs. And I think when you look at Brentford's team, I think in the Premier League, and this is kind of the point that I think we were making for Wolves, that we were making with Forest as well. I think Brentford fall in that category of you can't tread water in the Premier League. You just can't. Eventually, other teams will swallow you up. There's always clubs beneath you, around you, above you that are more ambitious, that are looking to spend more, play better football, be more expansive, be braver in the transfer market, go after bigger names. And Brentford have been in this place for a couple of years, and they probably have been propped up by Ivan Toney. Thomas Frank is obviously a very, very good manager. And so, I had them in 14. I had Everton as high as 11.
Wow. Okay. What makes you think that?
I found the bottom of the table really, really tricky, and anywhere above, honestly, basically above the three relegated teams to honestly about 11th, you could probably reorder it in any order, and I don't think I would be overly surprised. I think I looked at last season without the points deduction, I think they would have come in about 10th or 11th last season. And I think without that, I think they did a really good job of creating that kind of us against the world mentality. And I just think Everton are harder to beat than a lot of the teams below them. I think particularly at Goodison, I think without those shackles of the I know there's that kind of other potential one looming, but as we sit here on the 16th of August, they don't currently have a points deduction. I think particularly if they can get off with a win against Brighton in their first game, which I think they may well do, it'd be interesting to see. Calvert-Lewin fit as well is a big, big deal. I like Jesper Lindstrom. I like Iliman Ndiaye. Jacob Bryan as well is an interesting bit of business. There's kind of a few Everton fans that I work with, and I was kind of talking to them about Onana, and they took a very interesting approach on the Onana deal, and they were kind of like, we're very sad to see him go, but they don't ever think they got to see the best of him. That's the way that the dice system works. The midfield is kind of bypassed the points. Like, it's very much about getting it forward as quickly as possible, very direct football. And so they were kind of like, we had a player that was almost too good for us to use. Like, we weren't using it properly. It made sense for them to cash in and then reinvest it in players like Ndiaye, like Jake O'Brien, players that fit that Sean Dyche football better, that didn't necessarily have the same star power. And so they were very quick to say how talented Amadou Onana was. It wasn't that it was a kind of good riddance, but it was more, we never really were getting the best out of him. So it kind of made sense for all parties. I think it was a good deal for us, a good deal for the player, and a good deal for Everton as well. So I think that whilst I do think that he'll definitely be a miss, I think he only got I think it was like 2 goals or something last season. So he was never there's not a massive goal output there to cover. Jesper Lindstrom scored some nice goals in pre-season and stuff like that. So it looks like he could contribute. And so, yeah, I just kind of was in terms of just being difficult, if they can keep Calvert-Lewin fit, big players like that, I think they're always good value for clean sheets, particularly under Diet. So I have them as high as 11. But, mate, as I say, the kind of bottom half above the relegation zone, I found it so difficult to order.
Yeah, I think a lot of these teams look at each other and think that they're the most ambitious bottom half team, when in actual fact, they're all in the same or similar positions. It's interesting to sort of see and hear, firsthand, as you have other fans experiences with that, mate. 12th, I think, again, I don't think there's much sort of moving about that you can do here. Sorry, I think there is a lot of moving about you can do here, but I'm going to put Brighton in 12th.
That's exactly where I had them as well. Exactly.
I think the young manager, 32 years old, managed at St. Pauli. It's going to be really interesting to see how he sort of deals with a dressing room. I think they've got a lot of quality. They've bought really well. Yukipa Minta is a quality addition. I think, no Europe will be really important for Brighton, but I think they almost have too many players in a lot of these forward positions, and I think it may take them a little while to figure things out. Although saying that, I was talking to a Brighton fan from work who's obviously very giddy about a lot of the business. Jorginho Ruta is looking to come in. I think £40 million is as safe as a bet, I think, on someone like Ruta. I think he's such a maverick. He's got such amazing skill. I think if Leeds had got promoted, obviously they wouldn't have been in this position to sell. I think although he is a striker, it's almost hard to sort of nail down a position for him because he's so sort of free-flowing and creative. So it'll be interesting to see how he fits into a system. And again, as I mentioned, with all those forwards that Brighton seem to have. But ultimately, I think it's going to be a lot of sort of teething problems, learning a new system, new manager, all that. And 12 seems about as high as I can go with Brighton, really, mate.
Yep, I completely echo that, mate. I think, again, they've done good business, steady business, nothing that suggests to me that they're going to kind of prepare another one of those charges towards European football that we saw a couple of seasons ago. Again, someone like Yankuba Minta has had a good pre-season, could go on to have a good season. There's some, very typically Brighton business, some pretty big fees as well that have kind of gone under the radar. I think they've spent well over 100 million this summer, and there's not, in terms of standout names, there's not a huge amount that you'd recognise, but there often isn't with Brighton. So it'd be interesting to see how Minta, Berg, Ruda and Osman, so those are the big money signings, 35 million, 30 million, 30 million and 19.5 million euro respectively. So there's some hefty fees that they've splashed out on their Ruta as well. That would be another 40 million, I think. So pretty big business. And so again, there's business still to be done, as you say. I think someone like Ferdi Kalioglu as well, who they've been linked with, would be a very interesting signing at fullback. And so it'd be interesting to kind of take stock at the end of the window. But yeah, right here, right now, I'm pretty happy with top, mate.
11th, I'm flirting between Fulham and Palace. I'm going to give it to Fulham because somebody has to go there. and I really like Palace. I really like Oli Glasner. I think that will depend on whether Eze stays and how people like Ismail Sarr bed into the team. They've just loaned a really talented youngster to Sheffield United, Raksuki or something like that. Had a really good pre-season. There's, I believe, a clause in his contract which says he can be recalled, so I wouldn't be surprised if Eze goes and he has a good half a season at Sheffield that come January he is, someone who's brought back. I really like Palace. I really like Glasner. I really like Mateta. I feel like, on both of our sort of last Palace preview podcasts, we were like, who's this bum Mateta? But like Glasner's really got him firing, and there's a lot to like there. Really good young squads. I think, losing someone like Gahey will obviously be huge and could potentially hamper them. But I think Glasner is a competent enough coach and has already proven that he can work with what he's got. So I don't necessarily think it would be the end of the world if they lose Eze and Gahey. But, obviously keeping them would be massive, and they could potentially even finish higher than the 10th that I've got them in.
Mate, I like a lot of those points that you made. I actually do have them higher than the 10th you put them in. I have them in 9th. I think we saw enough from Fulham tonight, considering there's still a lot of business that they want to do. Marco Silva was quite refreshing, actually, in his pre-match. He was kind of asked, like, he's going to go back into the market. And that's usually a gateway for a very cliche answer from the manager. But he was like, yes. He was like, we will definitely sign someone at DM, and like was very kind of assertive that they're going to address that big Jopalin-shaped hole in their midfield. Obviously, Tosin Darby has gone as well to Chelsea, so that's another big loss. Our very own Diego Carlos has been kind of linked with a move there, and so I think I did see enough tonight to kind of show that they are going to be a thorn in some pretty big team sides this season, particularly at the Cottage. Emil Smith Rowe, I think, he's going to have a very exciting season, and so I think if they can do some good business, I kind of like what they're doing. I do have Palace in 9th. I love the model that they're putting together. I like the team. The team that I've got sandwiching 11th and 9th in 10th place, I've got Chelsea.
Okay, yeah.
And so I think this is probably the biggest question mark in the Premier League this season, as to kind of where you place them. I've just not seen enough kind of devotion from last season to suggest that I can really believe in them and place them above someone like Palace, who have a real model, real belief, a real strategy, a real kind of good feeling about the club. I think Chelsea are, like, if they start the season poorly, like, they're a club that are 180 minutes from crisis permanently, and I just can't see how you can put together something that resembles success, even like on a remote level. I know they kind of got into the Conference League last season, but like when I look at the sides above them, I just find it really hard to believe in them, and they generally disappoint. So I have them in 10th. I do have Palace in 9th, but I mean, Chelsea, if we sat here and you kind of fast forwarded Sunday night, you told me that they've got a result against City at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised. I just find them such a difficult side to gauge, and so I suppose with that logic, I just put them slap bang in the middle, but and that's kind of where I came out with it.
Mate, no, you made some very good points. I think I would put a lot of money on Maresca being the first manager sacked. I don't envy anyone working at Chelsea. That's got to be a bit of a tough one at the moment. So who else have we got? We've got we've done 10th, but I'm losing track here. I think this one may be a controversial one. I'm looking at West Ham, and I think that of all of the teams overall, they've had the best transfer window in terms of the names that they've recruited. They've brought in some really interesting profiles. I just don't see it gelling in the first season, and Lopetegui's style of football is interesting. I don't necessarily think he's any better than David Moyes, but I think it will be more entertaining for the fans. So I think I'm going to have to place West Ham in 8. Is it 8th? Are we up to 8 now? We've got to be up to 8.
Yeah, that's exactly where I have West Ham as well. As you rightly say, mate, I think when we're talking about like transfer business that breaks you out the mold, I think that's the transfer business. Whilst I don't think they're going to set the world alight, I think they'll just have a good, fine season. And I think that's what 8th is for West Ham. I think they'll they might get into the Conference League. And I think that's good. As you say, I don't think they're going to set the world alight. People are kind of suggesting that they could break the top 6 and stuff like that. I don't think they're going to go that high, but I totally agree with you that they've done some good business. And I think as a reward for that, I think they've been bold, they've been brave, they've backed a new manager, and I think that they could well break through. And I do like their summer business, that just that a little bit more than Palace's. I think they've just been have a little bit more active. There's some more names, like just in terms numerically, there's some more names, there's bigger names. I think Fulkrug could be an interesting signing, and so yeah, I'm happy with that as well.
I think that'd be a really good season for them. I really do.
I agree.
Seventh. See, I'm looking at a lot of these teams. One fan base isn't going to be happy at all, and I'm trying to figure out if this next pick aligns with where I have Villa as well. 7th, I think it's Newcastle.
Oh, interesting.
I feel like people have got them quite high. And listen, I'm not anti-Newcastle. I think fully fit, they got a great team. Sandro Tonali still to come back as well. They don't have Europe to worry about, which will be big for them. Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm going to have to put them 7th.
I have them 4th.
4th? Okay, we need to settle this. We need to agree somewhere.
Can I complicate this even more? I have Aston Villa at 7th.
Dan Wiseman, cancel the Villa Filler podcast. This Zoom is ending right now. Why are we 7th? I don't think you're far off, but why 7th?
If we on whatever August 31st, September 3rd, whenever the window closes, I imagine we will be higher. There are just more questions than answers.
Okay,
current playing squad, and like I think we do the sale of Camacho suggests that there's someone coming in. I'm worried about. I think we're going to be a little bit leaky. I think that's kind of my first. I think we're going to be a little bit leaky. Well, we conceded a few too many goals too easily in pre-season for my liking, and I just think that we've got a terrible first 2 games of the season. Really,
yeah.
We've not won away at West Ham since Kyle Walker was playing for the Villa, and then Arsenal at home. Like there is, and this is not me. We're a very optimistic podcast. This is not me with my pessimist hat on. There is every chance after 2 games we're sat on 0 points. There is every. I don't think that we will be. I do think that we'll get a result out of those first 2 games, maybe even against Arsenal. But there is every chance. Like it's not crazy to suggest that we lose West Ham away and then Arsenal at home. I think Ollie, without a lack of pre-season, just a lack of pre-season, like no pre-season.
There isn't one.
Yeah, like that is. It could well take him back end of September, early October to really like hit his stride and get the games under his belt that he needs. And so, yeah, I just kind of like, I don't know, like he's just based on where we're at now. I think we're still going to do some good business. I think now the faith in Felix coming through is starting to peter out. It looks like, and like I just worry that we spent too much time waiting on that to maybe happen. And Newcastle in 4th, I just like them more than, I think they're more resilient. I think they're harder to beat. I think without Champions League football, them being able to dial in 100% on the Premier League is going to propel them over the clubs that I had in. We have to, the fact that we have to manage Champions League football alongside all of those kind of concerns that I mentioned. That's why I've got us in 7th. I had Spurs in 6th.
Okay.
Man United in 5th. Newcastle 4th.
Well, okay. So you have Spurs in 6th. I don't think we can put Spurs in 7th. Can we? I don't think we can.
This is what I came to. Like, I'm genuinely hot on Villa. I love Onana. I love Maatsen. I think they're going to be great. But I just couldn't wholeheartedly put us anywhere.
Do you know what? I think you've convinced me. I had a 6th, so I don't think there isn't a lot in it, right? I don't think there will be. I think we're talking about a couple of points between 7th and maybe 12 points from 7th to 4th, right? Which come the end of the season is by quite a lot. But I don't know if I like the Newcastle in fourth shout, but I'm going to put it in because I'm looking at this table and I'm like, where do they go? So they're there by default for now, and because I think you've got good reasoning for the other placements. I think we've done this before, mate. I think we've got the same top three, and I think it's Liverpool third. I think it's Manchester City second, and I think he predicted Arsenal to win the league. Yeah,
I have. You're absolutely right.
I know you, man. I know you. I know you
from you.
And do you know what? I really like the only reason I've got Arsenal first is I know we said last season, you know, City. I think they can't. No one's won it 4 times in a row, and then they've gone and done it. Nobody's won it 5 times in a row. 5 is a silly number, right? And although I do think if Arsenal are to truly go and win the league, they need to go and spend £150 million on either Ollie Watkins or Alexander Isak or another world-class number 9 that you find somewhere. But I like Calafiori. Haven't seen a lot of him, if I'm being completely honest, but I think that is a major upgrade on Zinchenko, Tomiyasu, Kivior. I like that. I think if they can sign another midfielder, if they can sign a striker, I think that they will win the league. And I just think that, you know, some of City's outgoings, obviously they've lost Alvarez, they've not signed a striker. It wouldn't surprise me if City go and sign a striker, but a lot of the dealings here, all suggest that City, I don't know, and now I'm saying it, I don't even know if they will finish second, but I just think that City need a striker, City need another midfielder, and, you know, Rodri's injured, all this, it could all add up. It could all add up. And maybe this is Arsenal's year. We've got just under a minute and a half left on the Zoom, mate. So please surmise your thoughts in as few words as possible.
I have a funny feeling that Arsenal defence is going to concede about 19 goals this season.
Okay.
And Arsenal, I just think with that Calafiori, like that addition to the back line, they just shut out the season. I think that kind of, as long as they get a couple of goals a game, they're just going to be so hard to beat. And like City, as you say, like the business they've done is good, but like I saw a tweet and it was like their 4 wing options are like Bob, Grealish, Savio, and Doku, and I was like, that title winning, is it? And I was like, Rodri's already out. Like De Bruyne's fitness is patchy. They've lost Alvarez. Like Haaland had a big injury last season. Like I like Arsenal more. So there you are, the 2024-2025 Premier League champions, according to the Villa Pillar podcast.
Absolutely. Take that, Arsenal. Put that in your trophy cabinet. Guys, let us know your thoughts on our predictions and let us know your predictions in the comment section down below, specifically where Villa are going to finish. If you're new to the channel, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. And up with Villa.